How strong is Meruem from Hunter x Hunter? To understand how powerful he is, we must first understand how powerful the chimeras are. If you're only here to see the strength of Meruem, skip to 7 minutes and 30 seconds. The Queen is capable of making squadron leaders who have the ability to take on pro hunters. The reason this is significant is because throughout the series we've been shown that without Nen you are unable to be a Nen user, regardless of strength, skill, technique. This is clearly shown in the fight between Killua and Zushi. Although Killua is a master assassin and has numerous fights under his belt, he just could not keep Zushi down, and even loses control and hits him with an attack that would have killed him if he did not have aura protecting him. Although the strength and technique difference between Killua and Zushi are night and day, Killua just could not win this fight. After realizing that one of the ants has managed to kill Nen users, Kite automatically assesses the Chimera ants as an A-level threat, referring to it as a top-level threat. This canonically puts the Chimera ants in the same category as the 5 calamities. It becomes abundantly clear how strong these Chimera ant squadron leaders are when Gon and Killua hit a surprise attack, immobilize a squadron leader, charge up a Jaja Ken, and it does no damage. This is the same ability that managed to push Razorback and one-shot a Greed Island player. Take into consideration how bad the Phantom Troop did against unnamed Chimera ants. Other than the Queen, only one of these soldiers is capable of using a Nen ability. Shanark literally gets trapped and would have died if he didn't use his ultimate ability. Finks has to charge his fist 15 times to punch through a being that doesn't even have Nen. He then claims it would have took 8 rotations, but judging from the fact that this soldier does not have aura, that is embarrassing. Shizuku literally got full beast. Her only escape was getting naked. Don't get me started on Carluto. The Chimera ant literally just stood there and took it like a good boy. Phaeton used Ko, which is the ability to utilize all of your aura into a single spot, the same type of technique that Gon uses for Jaja Ken, and his sword broke. This literally forced Phaeton to pull out his strongest ability and pack-a-punch himself. This is literally a squadron leader. After this humiliation ritual, my respect from the Phantom Troop has dropped significantly, but since they're not the topic of this video, we're going to continue. This should give you a clear indication to how strong the Chimera ants are. The fact that they can bully the Phantom Troop, which is already a top organization in the Nen world, without even having proper abilities. Entering the realm of the royals, we have Pito. The furthest human end range is only 170 feet. Pito, right after being born, had end capable of reaching thousands of feet. Judging from the fact that the hunters couldn't find a concrete way to infiltrate the castle because of Pito's end, it's likely to conclude that Pito always has their end up. A few minutes after being born, Pito is so powerful that it causes Kite to sweat and tell Gon and Killua to run away. Pito then manages to jump thousands of feet and removes Kite's arm before he can finish telling Gon and Killua to run away. Killua then goes on to assess that not even Netero has the ability to beat Pito. Morel then goes on to state that the overall aura of your opponent isn't necessarily dependent on whether you'll succeed or not. This statement is clearly narcissistic and shouldn't be taken logically, judging from the fact that his next sentence was that Gon would have more of a future than Killua, despite the fact that if Gon would have fought Pito, he would have died. I know the statement to be untrue because of Knuckles' ability, and he states that the more aura you focus, the less you have to protect yourself. He even states that Gon has enough aura to match a mid-ranking pro. Killua then goes on to tell us that aura is energy, and once you extract all of your aura, then you pass out. He also gives us a visualization on what aura combat looks like when it comes to defenses. Knuckles then concludes that Gon has around 21,000 aura. Morel has 70,000. So judging from the fact that Netero states that he should be relative to Morel and the other guy, this version of Netero should be around 80 to 100,000, and Prime Netero, giving him the generous benefit of the doubt, should be around 150,000. All that to say, we literally see him charging before the fight. Even if you argue that this version of Netero during this meditative state won't allow him to access the power he had in his prime, he is still significantly stronger than he was at the time that he stated that he is weaker than Pito. Then again, it wouldn't really matter because UP has a stated aura level above 700,000. This is far before he even understands how his power works, so it's likely higher than that at the end of the series. Knuckles literally states that he can't even see the limit of UP's aura. Just in case anyone claims it's clearly hyperbolic, By the time that Yuppie gets Knuckle to dispel his ability, the counter is at 370,000. We know the statement has validity for the simple fact that we already know that Morel's overall aura quantification is 70,000. And if you times that by 5, you get 350,000. This already heavily substantiates the fact that Knuckle not only knows what he's talking about, but the fact that Yuppie actually has these levels of aura. The other guards obviously would scale relative to Yuppie. There's no doubt that Pito clearly scales to Yuppie, although it may be hard to argue for Poof because he's a support type and not a fighter like the other two. He should also be up there in aura reserves. Now that we know that Morel's statement is incorrect logically, let's also go over the feats in the series that substantiates the fact that it's invalid. Using Perfect Plan, it makes Knuckle impossible to be perceived, which means every successful attack he hits on Yuppie is completely unguarded. But despite that, they do absolutely no damage to Yuppie, even stating that an accidental graze paid back the punch that he delivered. Knuckle even says that he's trying his hardest to send Yuppie over the moon, and despite that, the most damage he can do is slide Yuppie 3 feet in the opposite direction. Now that we've thoroughly debunked the fact that aura, quote-unquote, doesn't matter, let's also go over the feats that each of the royals have. Yuppie dropped off a Pro Hunter in less than 30 seconds, which demonstrates an insane amount of strength but also a high level of adaptation. Also stated to have the ability to one-shot Knuckle. Another statement to further substantiate the fact that he has over 700,000 quantification worth of aura. Pito survived the attack from Netero and came out unharmed, forced Gon to use all of the power he will ever have in his lifetime to thrust him to an age where he can defeat Pito. Which is also something for those who think Adult Gon can fight Meruem. Adult Gon is only capable of defeating Pito and those who scale below Pito. It's explicitly stated. Nonetheless, Pito survived a Jaja Ken, which is basically summing up all of your aura into a punch and throwing it. Poof doesn't have many feats to substantiate his strength or speed, but he does have feats to substantiate his intellect for being a support character. One of the most notable is the fact that he stated that he could predict the games that Komugi and Meruem were playing. He can also read minds, he has hypnosis, and the ability to break apart into segments. These segments can spread and share information between them and the main body. Meruem is a premature baby, which essentially means if he was born at the right time, the series would already be over. We know this because when Netero tried to go aura for aura with the king, it was stated that he would be killed by a royal guard. Without even bothering going back into why aura is significant in a fight, let's go into the feats that Meruem has. Meruem is a genius. There's really no other word to describe the level of intellect that he has. He's able to beat national players with only 10 games worth of experience. When it comes to Gungi, that's where it becomes absolutely absurd. The only explanation would be that Meruem has photographic memory. Take a minute to consider how many possible moves there are in the game of chess. In my best game, the rating given was 1900, but the amount of moves was only around 29. If you're not mated in chess, games can last around 60 moves. And just from how many possible moves there are plenty of ways you could be mated. Although this game is slightly below the master level, the amount of moves is nowhere near how many Komugi and Meruem were playing on average. Not only is the Gungi board bigger, there are far more ways to move about your pieces. There are literally 50 pieces on the board at once. They are literally on move 144. Despite only reading the rulebook and going through games for experience, Meruem is able to not only use his photographic memory for accurate depictions of how games will go, he's also able to make a strategy that the world champion made 15 years ago. This is literally in the span of like 10 games. Despite having extremely high IQ, Meruem also has high EQ, having in-depth analysis on the human psyche. He's beyond hypocrisy and will even injure himself to prove a point. This point being that he was wrong. With high levels of IQ and EQ, he's beyond ego as well, even stating why did you not concede. And even in the matches he played with Komugi, he admits that he cannot beat her and starts a new game. This also leads me to believe that Meruem has no fear of running away. He is perfectly fine with admitting somebody is stronger than him and retreating to make a plan in which he can beat the person in the next battle. Meruem's intellect is generally a reflection of Komugi's because she also has photographic memory, and the fact that they both improve at rapid rates and Meruem even forces her to make new moves. It clearly shows the difference between Meruem and all of the opponents she's faced before. Now for his strength and durability, he was off-guarded by Meruem and took no damage. Meruem even casually sits down, and even the narrator states that Netero's attacks are basically a toddler throwing a tantrum, in comparison to the full power of the king. They begin their fight for Meruem's name, and he states that he'll have to play without a rook and bishop. Again, if you use chess for reference, you'll understand how difficult it is to play an opponent without a rook or a bishop. But in this case, there are 25 pieces, and Meruem is missing his main components. When you take into consideration how unbelievably complex Gungi actually is, then you'll actually understand the gratification of what Meruem is saying, how handicapped he is. Meruem once again takes absolutely no damage, then decides to be Netero. He'll just run at him to figure out his pattern. He decides that he's clearly capable of analyzing his patterns to find his habits and biases. He compares it to piercing a needle with a needle, stating it's something that he can do, and tells Netero not to die before he's finished his game. This is once again just separating Netero from Meruem. Meruem knows that he's not in real danger, while Netero states if he makes one mistake he's gonna die. It stated that the games with Komogi gave him superhuman abilities when it came to foresight, warning Netero that he's going to take his arm next. He then swiftly defeats Netero, forcing him to use his zero hand, which unfortunately didn't really damage Meruem all that much, if any at all. So Meruem, while dilly-dallying because he has to hold back so he doesn't kill an old man so he can figure out his name, is far stronger than what Netero would ever be able to accomplish. Had he been born when he was supposed to, this fight wouldn't have been anything. The zero hand would have tickled him. Once you get to post-Rose Meruem, it's just a slaughter. He has the abilities of both Yuppie and Poof. And it's once again now explicitly stated that you can win a battle with sheer quantity of aura, and that's just what Meruem has. His aura is so menacing that it's able to speed up the aging process of another Chimera ant. It basically did what Poof's aura did to Nove when he first infiltrated the castle, times 1,000. Meruem is undoubtedly capable of surviving on the Dark Continent. Netero was able to do it, and Meruem is far stronger than Netero, even Prime Netero, it's not even close. Especially post-Rose Meruem. And once you consider the fact that he's premature, had he been born at the time he was supposed to during natural birth, someone ought to have to recall Dawn Freaks, because there's no one else in the verse that's touching him.